and our hearts for opening up Greenhouse. God, give him a round of applause, thanking him so much for opening up this church for us to have such a serious forum. He does so much in the community. He reaches out. You may notice that we have sometimes homeless coming because we serve the homeless throughout the week. They come here. We had this as a warming shelter when we had the big freeze back in December, right around Christmas. And so there are a lot of people as we serve this community that are going to come in and just kind of want to see, because that is the heart of Greenhouse International Church. So I just want you all to know that first and foremost. So this is a community church that you have yourself at today. So I just want to welcome you. And the purpose of today's event is just to bring about an awareness in our community of what your rights are. And we're going to have panelists from different perspectives that are going to help to educate you on that. But before we get started, we are going to open up with a word of prayer from our pastor, E.A. Deckard. If you would come up, please, sir. Guys, just give him a little bit of love as he come on up for us. Thank you so much, Pastor.
Good morning to you all. It is a privilege and a pleasure to host you on this morning. When Dr. Kim called, of course, the answer is always yes. We just figure out how to make yes a reality. She said the topic was Know Your Rights. This was the perfect setting, the perfect place, because this church is designed with in mind that if you're going to be in the hood, in a community that has been listed as a depressed community, the church, especially the African-American-led church, must be the light, the beacon of light, the center, the hub. So whatever's going on out there must be addressed in here. So give yourselves a great big hand for caring enough about the people. Amen. And then I want to say again, welcome to the Greenhouse International Church. But today it looks like AKA land. So again, welcome. Let's go before the Lord real quickly, and then I'll be out your way. Well, Father, we thank you once again for allowing us the privilege and the honor to be amongst the living. When your word says, this the day the Lord has made, let us rejoice and be glad within it. So today we thank you for bringing us together to communicate, to sharpen one another, so we can better lift up your name and help others find your glory. We pray today something will be said or done that will educate someone, empower someone, and possibly save someone's life. So, Father, we turn over every speaker. We turn over everything that will be taking place on this stage and in this sanctuary. It will bring you glory, and somebody's story shall be changed. We bless the AKAs in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you once again. And yes, this forum is hosted by none other than Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Omicron Tau Omega chapter. So if you are a member of our chapter, please wave your hands so people can see you all over the land. Good morning. And we don't want to leave out any member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority. So if you are a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, please stand. We want to just love on you a little bit. The guests, yes, because we have amazing guests. Yes. Thank you so much. So right now, I'm going to turn this over to Janice Dawes, my Sarah, and she's going to come up, and then we're going to introduce our panelists and move forward. So again, thank you all so much for coming today.
And good morning to you all. Before we get started, I wanted to bring up our Vice President, Nikki Bailey, to give some opening remarks about this particular event. We know that this is a timely event given the circumstances we find ourselves in our communities. And I thank the pastor again for opening up his church, and also for the prayer that he said over this event, and also the panelists that we have coming up.
Good morning again. As Janice has said, I am Nikki Bailey. I am the Vice President of Omicron Tau Omega Chapter, and I'm bringing greetings on behalf of myself and our Chapter President, Mrs. Yashada J. Kirkwood, who could not be here today, but she is with us in spirit. So this will be a very engaging and timely conversation about really knowing your rights whenever you do have an encounter with a police officer as an adult or even as teens. I see we have several teens in the audience, so I hope that you'll be paying attention and listening to the expertise of our panels. everyone should have received an index card. So that is for you if you have any questions that arise throughout the during the panel discussion. If you're not comfortable to raise your hand to actually speak it out, you can always write it down or just jot it just to keep it in the forefront, so when it's time to get to that Q&A, you will be able to get those questions answered. Again, welcome. I want to also thank the pastor for opening up his church for us, as well as our Advocate for Social Justice Committee Chairman. We have Leo Ellis in the back, who is the chairman, and then Janice Dawes, who is the co-chairman, who has facilitated and put on this event. So I hope that you enjoy it, and hello to everyone that is streaming in. You take notes as well, and if you have any questions, drop them in the comments, and we'll be sure to get with you. Thank you.
So I just want to give a brief introduction to the event today. As it's stated on the flyer, and as we'll be talking about during this forum, is about knowing your rights during a police encounter. We wanted to put the emphasis on parents and teens, especially given the fact that a lot of our teens are encountering police either in their schools or out in the community, and also to cover some general information about the criminal justice system. We wanted to make this a less scary event when you have a police encounter, and for you to understand that you do have rights when you do have encountered the police, and understanding and knowing what those rights are. Now, I will give a disclaimer. I'm a lawyer, and I have to give a disclaimer about how we will be conducting the questions. First and foremost, please do not take this as legal advice, okay? This is not legal advice. Also, we cannot answer your specific questions about your specific issues, or if you have an open case with any law enforcement agency or in the criminal justice system as of now. We will be giving general information, so please understand that. This is general information. If you have a specific issue or have a specific concern about your specific situation, I will have to tell you, you do need to contact an attorney of your choice, and hopefully somebody who specializes in the area in which you find yourself in. So, as I bring up the panelists, I will say a little bit of information about each and every one of them, and as I say your name, please come on up and take your seat here on the podium. The first person I would like to introduce is Judge Beverly Armstrong. And as she comes up, I do want to tell you a little bit about Judge Beverly Armstrong. Judge Beverly Armstrong is currently the presiding judge of the 208th Criminal District Court here in Harris County, Texas. She was just recently elected to the bench, and prior to that time, she served as the first assistant in Polk County. She also has served as a prosecutor in the Galveston County DA's office, and she has done a variety of things in the legal community. We are excited to have her. She is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and she is married with 2 children and lives here in the Houston, Texas area. So please give Judge Armstrong a hand again. I would also like to bring up Deputy Raven Washington. Deputy Washington is a resident of the Harris County area, and she is also a deputy sheriff with the Harris County Sheriff's Office. She has been involved in a lot of community service and a lot of community service events, and we are happy to have her as a member of the law enforcement community here with us today. I would like to also bring up Attorney Damon Parrish. Attorney Damon Parrish is an assistant public defender with the Harris County Public Defender's Office. Prior to joining the office, he had a practice that dealt with criminal justice issues involving felony, misdemeanors, and also juvenile justice issues. He is a graduate of the Thurgood Marshall School of Law at Texas Southern University, and he is a member of the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association as well. We're happy to have Attorney Damon Parrish with us here today. I'd like to bring up Officer Ken Miles. He's a senior officer with the Houston Police Department. I didn't want to mix it up. With the Houston Police Department, he was one of the first people that I contacted from the law enforcement community and answered the call immediately. He has been involved with several community service events, and he has served our community with pride and excellence for a number of years. He's also a Marine or former Marine, so Semper Fi. I'd like to bring up Deputy Nicholas Powell. Deputy Powell is a sergeant with the Harris County Sheriff's Office. He is, again, a member of the law enforcement community that has served his community well and with distinction during his time at the Sheriff's Office. He also was a former, I believe, detention officer as well, and has served in that capacity as well. So we thank you, Deputy, for being here, or Sergeant, for being here with us today. And last but not least, I would like to bring up Attorney Valerie Sworn. Valerie is a former assistant district attorney with the Galveston County DA's office. She is now currently a trial attorney with Progressive Insurance, dealing with civil matters. During her time at the Galveston DA's office, Valerie served in capacity as an assistant district attorney working within the juvenile division. Valerie is well versed in the issues of juvenile law, and we are glad to have this distinguished panel with us today. So if you could, please give them another hand. Now, to start off this discussion, I spoke with our panelists to give me kind of a basis of where we need to go with this particular event. And some of the questions that you may have may center around some of the topics that we will discuss here this morning. As stated previously, you do have an opportunity to ask questions, and we will be taking questions from the audience. If you haven't received an index card, please just raise your hand, and a member of Omicron Tau Omega will actually pass you an index card. We ask you to hold those questions to the end of the panel, and we will again just emphasize, we cannot speak to your specific issue. We will just be given general information about the topics in which we are going to be discussing. So, for the first topic we have is, honestly, generally, while we're here, what do you do when you encounter the police? And I'm going to let Mr. Parrish lead off.
Thank you for that question. So I've actually done a lot of presentations before, and that almost always is the first question. What do you do when you encounter law enforcement? And I'll always say this. First and foremost, I do not view law enforcement as the enemy. I've dedicated my entire career to defending people. I've never been a prosecutor. I've only been a defense attorney. I've only defended the accused. And even still, I don't view law enforcement as the enemy. Now, on the opposite side, I don't view them as a friend either, right? They just have a job to do just like whatever. So we have three questions we always tell people when you encounter law enforcement, and it depends on your situation. The first one is, am I free to leave? Ask the officer that. Am I free to leave? They come to talk to you, and you feel like there's something going on. Maybe you're trying to investigate a crime. They think you're the potential defendant, or whatever. Am I free to leave? If they say yes, then you decide if you want to leave or not. If they say no, then at that point, you decide if you want to continue talking or not. And if you decide to do so, understand what you say can be used against you, and it usually is. And if you decide not to, you just simply ask or simply state, I would like an attorney if you're an adult. If you're an adult, I want an attorney, that stops it. I don't want to talk, that stops it. If you're a juvenile, you would say, I would like an attorney, and or I would like my parent there, because juveniles have a right to have their parents with them when they're encountering law enforcement, as well as other rights we can talk about later. But to summarize, the first thing you do is you say, hey, am I free to leave? And if they say yes, you decide. If they say no, then invoke your right to remain silent and ask for counsel. And that's what I would advise.
For law enforcement, for whoever wants to take this next question, what would you advise?
Good morning, everyone. Everything that he just said is absolutely correct. I have a 21-year-old son that was once teenage. I was one of those parents that feared an encounter with law enforcement going wrong. But I've always told him, for teenagers, for kids in general, if you respect your foundation of your family, if you respect your last name, if you respect your school teachers, if you respect your pastor, if you respect the member of the congregation, all adults in general, the police concern is the last encounter to go wrong. However, that doesn't rule out the possibility of an over anxious police officer being too aggressive to a teenager or a young adult that has done nothing wrong. I tell my son to get through the encounter and try to memorize everything that was said and transfer it to someone that can go verbally handle that encounter, because the goal is to stay alive. If you know in your heart that you have done nothing wrong, talk, don't talk, it's your discretion. But in 27 years, we find those that skirt tail around or have someone in the car with them that are questionable, because sometimes your friends don't always tell you what they've done, and then you get caught up in it, and this no-tell situation comes into play. Get through the encounter. Talk to your parents. Don't keep things a secret. And yeah, know your rights, definitely. But at the same time, don't have people in your car that can get you in trouble.
I think I'm good. Definitely, I agree with both of the brothers on the panel. To that, I would add, when I was younger, my dad used to have this rule where it was like, Nick, no other than one person in the car. Going back to what he said, and that kept me out of a lot of trouble, because you really don't know what your friends have on them, not just in the car, but when you're out and about, when you are somewhere out in public. So it's going to be very important to recognize the company that you keep, because the company that you keep when it comes to the law can also get you in trouble as well.
Can you hear me? And also to piggyback off of these gentlemen here, my actual personal story, my sister actually went to jail for 3 years because a friend of hers was in her vehicle. She left drugs in her car, didn't know. She got pulled over, and that became my sister's property because it was in her vehicle. So it takes a second for you to get pulled over and for someone to find something in your car, and then you go to jail. These aren't usually people that are in jail aren't serial criminals. They, sometimes it just happens and it's by happenstance. So you do have to be aware of who you surround yourself with, where you're going, things like that.
Sure, I don't have the feedback, but I think I was close to the. Yes, I was close to the speaker. I would piggyback on everything that they say. I have spoken to youth groups, especially at my church, and I always tell them, number one, to respect authority. Your parents, your teachers, your pastors, but also the people who are in a position, who are in an authoritative position at the time that you encounter them. The police are in an authoritative position at the time that you encounter them. So you need to understand, I always tell people, you're not going to win in that situation. When you're looking at your authority with teens, your parents, you're not going to win in that situation. You're not going to win. So when you have a person who's in a position of authority, respect that authority. And we hope that that authority will respect you as well. I'm going to go to Ms. Sworn. I'm going to ask you and start you off with this topic. Do juveniles have any constitutional rights? We talk about the constitutional rights that adults have when they have a law enforcement situation, just like you said, the right to remain silent, the right to invoke their request for an attorney. What are some of the constitutional rights that juveniles have?
Sure. So juveniles enjoy the same rights that adults have. The difference is in how those rights are exercised and how those rights are adjudicated. So, like the gentleman said, my colleague on the other side of the bar, a juvenile does have a right to have a parent present when they're being questioned. However, the law enforcement can determine how long that parent is there privately, and then separately. They have a right to be questioned in certain places. Juveniles cannot be questioned, for example, in detention centers where there are other adults. They have to be in places that are specifically designated as a juvenile holding site. There's a different terminology in the family code, but basically they can't be in handcuffs when they're being questioned. Adults can. They have to be in areas that are specifically away from adults, meaning that they can't communicate with adults can't communicate with them. So the rights that juveniles have under the Constitution are the same, but because juvenile law is a combination of the criminal code and the family code, then officers and people in law enforcement have to weigh the rights of the child and what's called the best interest of the child, along with the activity that they may be suspected of committing. So it's not just, did you break a law, or do I have reasonable suspicion, that's a legal term, or probable cause to believe that a law has been broken, because truancy is not a law, right? But it's something that if there's probable cause to believe that you are a truant, the juvenile, they can question you, they can detain you, but there are certain ways that they have to do that.
I do, if you don't mind. I would agree with my colleague. You have the same rights, but one thing I want to make clear is those rights are less in school. So in school, juveniles, we don't have the right to privacy in your locker. You don't have the right to privacy in your backpack. It means they can be searched even without your consent. If school suspects that you have a gun and they want to search your locker, your backpack, pat you down, they can do so without a warrant, without any. They need probable cause, or reasonable suspicion. But all it takes is another juvenile in your school to say, "Hey, John has a gun," and you're getting searched. And if during that search they find drugs and no gun, you're getting detained for that. This goes for in school and in school events. So if you're at like the football game, which may not be at your school but maybe at the local stadium, it applies there. If you're at any kind of a UIL event where you're academic decathlon or anything like that, where it's a school-sponsored event, kids generally have less rights when it comes to school. You have more rights on the street than you do at school. And I think when I did a lot of juvenile work, the great majority of it came from school. It came from thefts at school. It came from drugs at school. It came from fights at school. It came from guns. There was some more things that happened at home, or like on the bus stop going to school, or the bus stop coming home from school, or at the playground near school. But it almost always came from school. So I think it's important to understand that kids and juveniles know you don't have the same rights in school, and you have a lot less rights. And obviously you shouldn't bring a gun or drugs to school. But if you did, just know it can be taken, you can be searched, and they can find anything that during that course that can get you arrested.
Ask you, because we have some people in here who are school officials. What are the roles of school officials when you have those type of concerns, or say little Johnny brought a gun to school and there's a suspicion about that? What are the roles of schools in that school environment when you have those type of encounters?
I can't really speak for school code, but I can tell you whenever a call comes across our board in reference to a active shooter or anyone on school premises with a gun, it is taken very seriously for obvious reason, y'all. For everything that has this. Oh, sorry. I was like, should I drink it? Oh, okay. Sorry. I was saying, they take guns on school campuses very serious for like obvious reasons. There have been shootings throughout the nations. They're going to lock the school down. They're going to search whatever area that they believe that that gun is in, and they may just search every single backpack. My advice is not take a gun to school, plain and simple. But somebody in this room knows someone that has tendencies to bring a gun, a knife, or something to school. To me, a school is a last safe foundation that we really have left, that a child, your child, is there for extended hours. And God forbid that any one of us be at work and we get a call saying that something has happened to one of our loved ones. The worst feeling in the world. So they take it very seriously.
And I'm going to direct this to Judge Armstrong. Do juveniles, Ms. Sworn talked about the fact, or Attorney Sworn talked about the fact that there are some rights, but there is a quasi-criminal but quasi-family situation or family code situation when you have a juvenile issue. Do juveniles have a right to bail?
So I'm going to talk about bail and multiple things. The thing with juveniles and bail is understand that juveniles are going to be, the plan is for them to be released back to their parents. That's the plan. So generally speaking, it's going to be an opportunity for the parents to get them back. And if for some reason the severity of it is such that that can't be done, there's going to be a detention hearing. And in that detention hearing, which has to be done within a certain amount of time, the judge will decide whether or not the juvenile will be sent to a detention center, or if they will then again be released to usually parents or some other family member that is appropriate. So bail isn't really an issue because the goal is to release them. And remember, like I think it was Attorney Sworn said, they can't be with others. So if it's going to be held in a detention, it's going to be a juvenile detention center where there are other juveniles. Okay, juveniles are normally not placed in what we would call an adult jail or something like that. And I'm going to circle back to that. As far as just bail in general, because I know that's been a big issue, because so outside of the juvenile world is you have to remember that everyone has a right to bail. It is constitutional. The Constitution puts that in place. I can't tell you how many people have come to me before I took the bench and now that I'm on the bench just to say, no bail, no bail, no bail. And although you might think that sounds good, it's the simple fact of the matter is that the law does not allow that, okay? It's only in rare scenarios or situations where that's even a possibility, and even then there are a number of steps that have to take place before a judge can get to that point. So that is not something that is routinely possible because the Constitution does not allow it. Everyone has a right to reasonable bail, and of course you take into account the facts, what happened, the danger to community, and all of that when setting the bail. But everyone has that right, and so that's one of the things that we want to try to make sure we educate everybody to know about that. Back to when I said, generally speaking, the juvenile is going to be separated from the adults. I said generally speaking because I want everyone to understand that there are scenarios where a juvenile can be what we call certified as an adult. And if that process is successful, then that juvenile who is a juvenile by age, but in the eyes of law has been certified as an adult would then be treated as an adult, and so then placed in adult jail, TDC, things of that nature. Now, of course, that is a process, and it really only applies to our most, what we would consider, I think, our most serious types of crimes. But it does happen. It has happened. I've seen it. I've been a part of that. So, and I think when I talk to people, especially people dealing with juvenile issues, they don't realize it or they don't believe it. And so I want you to understand and believe that it does, it can, and it has happened. So be very, very, very careful about what's happening, because that's just the reality of how the system works. So.
I have another question. What happens when you consider yourself a juvenile? You're 17, but not yet 18, and you're still considered not an adult, but you are 17, and I'll call it a day. What happens with you? Are you still considered a juvenile for the juvenile justice system, or are you considered an adult even though you're under the age of 18?
Well, let me put it this way. So I'm judge of the 208th Criminal District Court. That's typically court for adults. I'm not a juvenile judge. But if you're 17 years old and something happens and you need to see a judge, you could probably end up you could possibly end up in front of me, because 17, you're adult in the eyes of the justice. Okay, so and as a 17-year-old, to bring it home, as a 17-year-old, and I've had 17-year-olds come in front of me. As a 17-year-old coming in front of me, you're there. Your mom, your dad, whoever, they might be in audience, but I'm listening to you and your attorney, because again, you're an adult in my eyes and in the eyes of the criminal justice world. And that's how you're going to be treated, and that's how we're going to move through the system.
Can I add to that? Because we actually talked about that topic in the pregame discussion the other day. And as children, as juveniles, you guys really have to understand, when you're in school, and let's say you're a junior or a senior, and you get into a fight with a freshman or a sophomore, if you're 17, you can get in serious trouble based on, you'll win the fight, but if there's substantial injury to that freshman or sophomore that's still classified as a juvenile, that could damage your record for your days, your future days. Is there someone here that can just kind of expand on that? Because they really have to understand that once you hit 17, you can cry for mama and daddy all day, but in the eyes of the state of Texas, you're an adult.
I'll take a little bit of that. So the juvenile justice system starts at 10, first of all. A lot of people don't know that. That's 5th grade, 4th grade for some kids. And I have prosecuted, I hate to use that term, but it's more of a social work situation in juvenile justice. But I have prosecuted elementary level children, so let's be clear on that. As far as 17, the juvenile justice system
want to go to our next topic. A lot of our kids are on these cell phones. I have mine. Let's talk a little bit about that. Some kids like to send, I call them provocative photos. Those photos that they shouldn't be sending in the first place to other little kids. What happens when you are using your cell phone in inappropriate ways?
I'll chime in for a second. I'll tell you what, I'm taking a quick show of hands in the room. How many of the youth in the room currently has a cell phone? Or parents who's provided their kids with cell phones? Yeah. You know, oftentimes what I've been finding these past couple of years is it's almost like giving your kids keys to a car with no rules on the road, with no driver's license. And it's almost, as parents, as if we're setting our kids up for failure, because we're introducing them to a world that we're trying to keep them away from inside of our doors, but digitally they have access to it wholeheartedly. As parents, we're going to have to be a lot more tech savvy into what apps are on the phone, how to work those phones, whether it's iPhone or Android. Team my phone over here, but I like iPhone because it helps me monitor my kids. I can track them. I can see what emails they get. I can see what photos they send out through the phone. Now through the social media apps, it's a little bit different, right? And kids, y'all know, y'all read those disclaimers? I don't think anybody reads the disclaimers, but most of them say 18, 18, 18. But what we just lie. We just make ourselves, 17, 18. Stop. But when it comes to those pictures and picture sharing and looking and exchanging, by definition, that is child pornography. And if you're not fully nude, you're partially nude, that's another term, which is called child erotica. So definitely, I'm trying to be real sensitive as I say this. Parents, you're gonna have to get in your kids' business. I know it is not the fun thing to do. I know some parents like to be friends with their kids, but the best friend you can be is that one that looks out for them and tell them that there's a car coming down the street and you're about to get hit. So if you're not spending the time, if you haven't recently, take a deep dive through the phone, sit down with them, start putting some rules in place. And a lot of these rules you can actually find online. The Federal Trade Commission has a great publication out there that gives you step-by-step basis on tips and things that you can do as far as trying to protect your kids from seeing child pornography online, or if you're a victim of that as well. And that's, which is a whole nother topic, but I'll leave some for the rest of the panel.
Thank you. As a father who is also giving his daughter a cell phone, I think we should expand it from cell phones to also include tablets and laptops and really anything that has the capability of going online and sending and receiving pictures. I agree with everyone here that it's really up to the parents to set limits. None of my children's devices are capable of going to adult websites. They're all locked down. We routinely monitor them. My wife and I will go on their devices. My daughter's cell phone, she knows she cannot use it in her room. It stays in the living room with us when she's there. And at any point in time, if we want, my wife and I will go through it. Sometimes with her right there looking at us. Other times she might be asleep. But we'll go through her phone to see what's there. We have limitations put on. I think it's unfortunate that children can be charged with child pornography when one child sends a picture to another child, or when one child receives a picture from another child. I think that's unfortunate. I don't like it, and I have definitely fought against that as a defense attorney and litigated like these are kids being kids. And we can all agree that we were all curious about things growing up, and it's much easier than now than it was for my generation. But that being said, I think it's important for us as parents to not just turn over a device with such power without monitoring it and without placing limitations and without actually going through the phone. And having done that before, it can be uncomfortable to sit there and go through a phone because you're hoping you don't see what could be there, and you're very relieved when you don't find it, but we have to do it, right? But as juveniles should know, and adults too, if you receive a picture of a child, I mean, that's just a criminal offense, even if you're a child. In any part, it can be a child's breasts, or obviously genitalia, or their buttocks. Any part of a child, if you receive it or send it, that is just a felony offense. And if you're over the age of 10, you probably will get charged if you get caught. I can't imagine you not being charged, and you'll have to walk that road. I think it's also important to know that, especially for adults, if you get charged with that and you take deferred probation or a conviction, you are now a registered sex offender for life. That carries with you for the rest of your days. Juveniles have a form of sex offender registration as well. It's not for life. It can be 10 years, but it's something that will follow with you. And usually when you're on those lists, you're there for life. I mean, once you're on it, it's hard to get off of it. And even if you can't get off of it, you're still probably on it in some way. So I think the best case, what you want to do is always talk to our kids, always teach them, make them comfortable with their bodies, make them understand what sex is, but also place hard and fast limitations on what can and can't be done, and let them know that this can carry some very serious punishment if you're caught.
To this, and I'm gonna wear a different hat, because before I took the bench, for a while, I was chief of the Child Abuse Division in Galveston County, which meant I handled all of the cases involving crimes against children. Unfortunately, most of them was in the form of some type of sexual assault, or sexual inappropriate contact. And one of the things the reason I bring this up is because I want the parents and the juveniles here to be aware that a lot of these programs, apps, things that you intend for fun, predators find them and use them as their source of finding their victims. I cannot tell you how many times once they do the investigation, we find that that's how the initial contact was made. That's how it started, and then the child is lured into a sense of security, or this is my friend, or whatever the case might be, and then your next thing you know, it has gone to a level that is unspeakable. So please be cautious about that and understand. I would tell you that if you're on these gaming systems or whatever, don't talk to people you don't know. Don't engage with people you don't know. Don't give out personal information. Obviously, we already talked about the picture situation. Just don't do it, because these people have ways of locating, finding you, and somehow creating a sense of, safety or security. And it is quite scary. I've been a part of what was, I don't know if they still do it, but stings, where we would officers would set up and, pose as people who are interested in meeting up with young people, and you'd be surprised how many young people will sneak out of the house to meet up with someone that they do not know. So just please, I agree with all. I agree with everyone that you and just be safe. Talk to your parents. Don't keep secrets, but stick with the people that you know, because, like I said, what's intended to be fun, predators can take it into something that's dangerous.
And I'm gonna add one thing to that. And what she's talking about basically is a technology called geo-mapping. So if you go to your phone right now and you look at your GPS, it's gonna give you a dot where you at. So if you go to your Snapchat, you look at that little map picture, it tells you exactly where you were at. Exactly, not like a general location. It is an exact, precise spot where you were at. Now, every time you get these social media apps, sometimes that's on default. It automatically has that geo-filtering information for ad sharing, so on and so forth. But when you're a scammer, when you're a predator, you use that same information to go and locate and plot. So that's an end. We have to reset that every 6 months. I don't know if y'all know that, but every time you get on the phone, you have to re-sign in some back time. That's because their terms of services have updated. So you're gonna have to get on those apps about every 6 months. Set your reminder, go go back in and make sure all that geo mapping, geo filtering, and stuff is off. And for parents, that's for y'all as well. This is not just for the children. Just want to share that information.
And to add to that, that people want to glorify, or I wouldn't say glorify, but picture sex trafficking, and that's a whole nother topic. They want to picture sex trafficking as this man or woman, whoever, comes and grabs you off the street. That's not always how it happens, guys. And more times than likely, it starts, like we said, via Instagram, Facebook, with just a conversation, and then it turns into a relationship, and then it, gets deeper, and then you meet up with this person, and then somehow you're in this deep, dark hole of sex trafficking. But I know that's another topic, but it definitely coincides with this topic.
And I'm just going to give just a point of privilege for me just to add. Some of the social media apps for the teens in here, you think your Snapchats are deleted? They're not. They're stored. People can get access to them. Also, a lot of times, people who you think are your friends are the people who are taking a picture while that snap is on and spreading it. So you need to understand that. Some people are like, well, Facebook is for old people. Teens still use it, and that's still another way to get into that arena of social media and getting into things that you shouldn't be getting into. The text messages that you send to each other with the photos, same thing. They used to have one, GHIC. I don't know if they still have GHIC, but if you're using GHIC, that's another app. And I'm cluing in your parents. Parents, take note. If your kids also, Instagram, the bane of my existence right now. I have teen nieces, the bane of my existence. A lot of times your children are doing things because they have a different handle. They have the app that's on your phone that you think you're looking through the Instagram and finding those little pictures, but guess what they do? They go on their friend's phone, set up another Instagram with a different handle that you know nothing about. And I see some teens smiling because they know they did it. So you need to go through one of the things that you can do, and I'm cluing in parents. Google Images. Put your child image in. Their Instagram will pop up. The one they didn't show you. Thank you, teens. I just clued your parents in. Literally, they can find those other Facebook pages. Do a reverse Google image search. That's how you find people catfishing you too, but that's on a different topic.
Can I add one more? Speaking of never goes anywhere, I have a class that I do with teens called your digital footprint or your digital imprint. The tweets, the texts, the messages, they go absolutely nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. So imagine 10 years from now, 15 years from now, you get inspired by this conversation here on the stage, and you decide to run for judge. You decide to go be an attorney. You decide to be a police officer. You now have a digital catalog that can completely disqualify you from this position. So I just want you to keep in mind that as you text online, you can be nasty in person and deny it. Oh, I didn't say that. Digitally, it's you all day long. It's attached to your IP address, it's attached to your email, it's attached to you. That is a part of your footprint digitally that will never go away. So if you are currently being nasty online, typing things, you're not supposed to be typing, saying things to people and being hurtful, it's a good time to stop. And hopefully you've eliminated some of the damage that could be done with your career, because the digital age is only improving. If I'm not mistaken, they actually have, there's a group out now that when we run for campaigns, right? Run for campaigns, that's all, they get paid to just go in and find dirt on you. And it's everywhere, because we're not coming back and cleaning our feet when we get off online. But we shouldn't be doing it in the first place. I just want to add that, sorry.
I'm going to now shift to a different topic. Unfortunately, some of our youth will get into drug usage, specifically marijuana, THC. I'm gonna use what they call the technical term THC. other forms of drug usage, how does that show up on a campus situation like they're in school, and kind of what are some of the things that you see as law enforcement, especially with that, and also in the judiciary with our defense attorneys and prosecutors? What are some of the issues around drugs and teen?
I'll start off. First and foremost, you can be tested if you're in any kind of extracurricular activity in school. If you play football, basketball, UIL, you can be tested for drugs. If they find drugs, you won't get arrested if it's in your system, but you can get disqualified from that participation in that event. If, like I said earlier, the school official believes you have drugs on you, they can search your backpack, they can search your body, not invasively, but like pat you down. They can search your locker to verify whether or not it's there. And so, like, a lot of times what happens is with my experience, drugs in school, the child with the drugs wasn't like wilding out. It wasn't like high and acting all silly and stuff. It was one of their friends told somebody else who told somebody else who either told a teacher or a teacher heard them talking about it, and then it kind of went down the road. The teacher asked that student, and that student flipped, and everybody keeps flipping until it gets to you. And while you're in class living your life, your locker is being searched, and then you get called to the front office, and you don't know what's going on. And now there's a resource officer in the school with the principal showing you the drugs, and now you're being detained, and they're going to call your parents and that kind of stuff. So I think that was typically my exposure as a defense attorney to how kids got found with drugs while in the school. Of course, when you're out in the free world, you're out in the streets, if something's going on and you get searched and they find drugs on you, you're getting detained like everybody else. But that was a normal process, and I think I don't want to be like scary, like school's a bad place. It's a great place, obviously you can learn, but if you have drugs on you, and if they think you have drugs on you, you can be searched. And I want to make sure we're clear upon that. You can be searched. If they find the drugs on you, you will begin a very different process of life. You can come back from it. It's not the end of your life. I've represented a lot of kids who had drugs on them. They usually got detained. They went through the detention process. Most of them went home, depending on the amount of drugs. Some had to stay a little bit longer. They eventually got deferred. They had to go to alternative school for a little bit, but they came back and they were able to get their record sealed and move forward. So it's not the end of the world. It is just a different process that you shouldn't have to go through while you're in school.
I kind of want to look at it from a different side, and I want y'all to know, in this day and age, almost every single uniformed police officer wears a body camera, right? So what does that mean? That means gone are the days where if we caught you with something that you shouldn't have, we had discretion to either thump you on the ear and tell you, get out of here, or throw it away, or this is your second chance, or everything is recorded, which means we don't have that discretion anymore. So what you get caught with, you get charged with. Then I became concerned with, there are so many overdose cases going on. How could you share something with a friend or a foe that may be laced with something? I work in Northeast Houston, Homestead Road, 5th Ward, Trinity Gardens, Cashmere Gardens. I've seen young athletes in school turn out to be mentally dysfunctional because they shared a marijuana stick with someone that they thought was a friend that ended up being laced. If you don't remember anything else, everything is recorded, so the chances of you getting away scot-free is gone. And or how do you know that that won't permanently destroy your brain?
A little bit more, I know you mentioned marijuana and we're talking about drugs and all of that, but scheduled narcotics and opioids. A lot of my cases when I was a juvenile prosecutor were because kids had pills, and you're sharing Adderall, you're sharing pills that somebody else actually had a prescription for, but you do not. The same effects as if you had an illegal substance. take it to the nurse. Make sure that everyone who has responsibility at the school has that medication. If you have to take it during the day, don't keep it on your person, because it's really hard to prove that it's yours. And even still, even if it is yours, it's such a danger to have on you, because somebody else can get it. They could say, oh, I need an Advil, and kids don't read pills. We don't know all of that. And so you think you're getting an Advil, and you're getting Adderall. And so that's a concern. Second thing, tobacco and e-cigarettes. It is illegal for you to have them if you're under the age of 21, maybe 18. You can't be a part of the municipal justice system. You can get tickets. Your parents can get called down if you have them. So you may have an e-cig that doesn't have marijuana in it, but it's some form of tobacco product. You cannot have that, period. We used to be concerned about people going down to the store and buying cigarettes for you. It's so far beyond that now, because e-cigs are on every store. You can just buy them, but you cannot possess them as a teenager, and that can get you detained as well.
The next thing and the next topic we want to talk about is weapons. I know that we have had some instances of, or I know we were talking previously about an uptick on unauthorized carrying of weapons. Can y'all and the panel speak a little bit to that, specifically guns?
So I'll start off again. Speaking as juveniles, you can't have guns. You can't carry a gun. As adults, depending upon your specific situation, if you are not a felon, if you are not currently on bond or probation for a assault offense involving family violence or anything like that, if you are not otherwise breaking the law, so you don't have a joint on you or driving drunk or carrying drugs, then you can carry a gun. I have a license to carry, but I don't always carry a gun. You can do that. Now, if you are one of those other categories I spoke about, if you are a convicted felon, then in Texas you cannot carry a gun in your person, period. Even in your car. And there's whole kind of ways that they figure out ways of prosecuting you that I fight those all the time. Gun in the glove compartment, glove in the armrest, and you're driving a vehicle. Sometimes I can win those, but sometimes, we lose them. But the point is, you will get arrested at the very least if you are a felon with a gun in your vicinity. If you are on bond, and Judge, you can speak to this, almost every bond condition in district court has a no weapons condition. You're on bond for drugs, no guns. You're on bond for robbery, no guns. You're on bond for fraud, which has nothing to do with weapons, no guns. If you're arrested for a criminal offense, I cannot imagine that you can have a firearm on your person. And if you get caught with that, you may not catch a new charge, let's say if you're just on bond for it, but you can have your bond forfeited. And those are one of those instances that the judge spoke about earlier, where she can hold you in jail for a really long time or no bond. So my advice would be, if you want to carry a gun and you don't fit those categories, do so. I carry a gun. I have no problem with that. Just know, if you fit one of those categories where you're already breaking the law, doing something illegal, even with no criminal history, you're on bond, or you're a felon, then you can catch some heat behind that, and that heat could vary in a lot of different ways.
And I'd like to add to that. Everything that he said was correct. And as you probably know, you don't have to have a license for a concealed handgun license in order to have and this is for the adults, obviously, to have a gun here in Texas. But I would encourage any adult who is interested in or has one to take the class, because it is important to know the gun laws. There are several that you need to be aware of, so you don't find yourself in a unexpected position that could cause you problems. And so I would encourage that, even though you don't need it, even if you don't follow through and actually get the license, but have some kind of class, some kind of training. You're going to be surprised at the number of gun laws that are in our codes that you need to be aware of if you're going to carry. So that's just advice, encouragement, something that I think would
one more thing on top of that. If you're going to carry a gun, even if you don't do the class, which I agree you definitely should, know how to shoot. Like at least know how to shoot within 6 feet. And I say that jokingly. You know, I have cases right now where my client is charged with murder because he was defending himself but does not know how to shoot and just the wrong person died, right? That happens. You know, bullets, we all think that bullets fly straight, and they don't. They fly at an arc, and depending on how your hand's pointed or your gun's pointed, or, you know, they professionally trained can tell you, like, it takes a long time to be really good at shooting a gun, but it only takes a moment, like, to kill a person. So if you're gonna carry a gun, at least know how to shoot it within 6 feet. At least know how to hit a target 6 feet in front of you. I don't advise anybody carry a gun that has only shot that gun once or twice. I think you should put some rounds through it and get to know it.
And speaking on that topic, since we all know that you no longer need a CDL, concealed handgun license, to carry a gun here in Texas, what do y'all think that one of the measures that law enforcement use to still try to combat gun violence? We conduct more traffic stops. And if we're conducting more traffic stops, that means any and every young or adult person that's driving, you may get pulled over for a small traffic violation, right? If you have a gun in the car and you're not a felon, you're good. If you have somebody in the car with you that's a felon with a gun, now you're put into a whole heap of mess, right? So now let's go back to our opening topic. If you're a young driver and you get pulled over because you have somebody suspected of doing something and you come out hostile with the police, all of that could go wrong, all because the wrong person is in the car with you. Gun violence is up, way up here in the country. I feel good saying that. You have to be very careful about who you let in these cars with a backpack, whether it be drugs or guns, guys. I can't help but stress that enough. Thanks.
Let me go to that. I'm glad you brought that up. What if it's not yours? You holding it for a friend? Because people hold it for a friend. I'm holding the drugs for a friend. I'm holding the gun for a friend.
Well,
I'm holding the gun for my boyfriend. I'm holding the drugs for my boyfriend. What if you just holding it?
so understand, everybody say that. We hear you, but we don't believe you. That's where this fine gentleman here come into play. You're still going to be processed, but why should you and your family have to spend money to go through that when all of this could have been avoided by not holding it for a friend?
Yeah, I agree. So I think if we're talking about in a situation where you're in a car, so I'm driving my wife's car, which I guess is both our cars. So I'm driving one of our cars, and she has drugs in the glove compartment. I don't know about it, and I get pulled over. I'm still going to get arrested for it. There's an area of law that has been created called constructive possession, affirmative links, that has been used to put somebody with something. So the gun is not on you, right? It's not on your body. The drugs aren't in your pocket, but there's someplace in your wingspan. They have this whole area law that they've constructed. I mean, obviously, I fight against it. I think some of it's kind of silly and a bit overreaching. But like I said earlier, you can beat that rep. You can have an attorney. You can fight it and show, hey, that gun really wasn't mine. My girlfriend bought the gun, and that's her car. And now we're driving to pick her up from work. I didn't know it was there. You can beat that conviction, but you are going to get arrested. This is for adults and juveniles. You are going to go downtown. You're gonna sit in Harris County Jail. I have visited a lot of clients in Harris County Jail. It does not smell good, and it has the highest rates in Texas of COVID, shingles, and tuberculosis. So like the Harris County Jail has the highest rates across Texas of those very like nasty diseases. Occasionally they get shut down and you can't visit your client because there's an outbreak of COVID or shingles or tuberculosis in their pod. Like Judge said also, you're entitled to a bond, but sometimes because of your criminal history, that bond's gotta be high and you just can't afford a $50,000 bond. And so you're just kind of sitting in jail while I try to work through your case, and you're getting frustrated, and I understand it, and you want to go home, and I understand it, but you're there. So I would never advise knowingly carrying drugs for anybody. I mean, just period. If anybody gives you drugs to hold for them, I mean, that's not your friend. And so I would never ever advise that. I can never see a scenario where I'd want to hold drugs to somebody unless, and I'm gonna say this out loud, unless I find drugs on my kids, I'm gonna take it from them and put it in my pocket. But like my friends, if they ask me to hold drugs, I'm just gonna say no. Like, that's just dumb. I wouldn't hold a gun for anybody else, not because I can't have one, I can, but because I don't know the history on that gun and where that gun has been and what has it been used for. And if that gun gets traced to me and it has, we call a dead body, has a dead body on it or something like that on it, then now I'm being looked at for something I definitely didn't do. So I would never advise knowingly holding contraband for someone else. But if you find yourself in a position where you didn't know it was there, you legit didn't know it was there, then I will also, no offense to law enforcement, never advise really speaking to cops. I would ask for a lawyer. Just like be quiet and just ask for a lawyer, and let somebody like me navigate that for you, because sometimes you can speak to cops and no offense to them, like I said, they're doing their job, and you think you're helping yourself, but you're really just hurting yourself. Because there's that whole law about constructive possession and affirmative links that has a lot of nuances to it, and you can unknowingly check some of those boxes off by just being honest. So don't be honest, don't lie, just be quiet and ask for an attorney.
I also want to urge all parents to check your children's backpacks, purses, closets. I don't know if y'all know, but they're making like realistic looking fake guns. And I've responded to an active shooter call at a school. Everybody with long guns and rifles standing outside ready to go inside of a school, and it's a fake gun. And it was, it was a mother. She was standing outside trying to get her child, and it was her child with the, gun in his backpack. It looks real. They sell these at Academy, guys. Like, you can literally go into Academy, get a gun. It looks real, just like the ones we use. And the kids bring it to school. They think it's cool, and it's not, y'all. So it can be major problems when it comes to that. So getting your kids' business, like you said.
And to add to that, 21. Gotta be 21 to carry that firearm. So that your uncle you got, that friend you got with that little burner that think it's cool, find a way to tell his mama. Gotta be 21. Other than that, it is unlawful for you to possess it.
Even if you don't have a gun, but you tell somebody you have a gun, that's called terroristic threat. And I had a lot of juvenile cases based on terroristic threat, because if your threat sounds credible enough, like the officer was saying earlier, it's way too many school shootings. People are not blowing that off. I actually had a case out of Santa Fe, I think a year before the Santa Fe shooting, and it was a terroristic threat, and the child was plotting to shoot up the school. It was not the same kid, but thank God we intervened because that plot was very credible. So even if you don't have a gun, but you say my uncle or my cousin, or I can get to it, and you threaten somebody and you're in earshot of other people and they go and tell an authority, you can get detained for a terroristic threat, and that's a punishable offense for juveniles and adults, but more so for juveniles in that scenario.
We didn't talk about this topic, but I'm going to ask that. But before I ask this question, I do want to tell, especially the adults in the audience, that we are running a voter registration drive as well during this. We're asking for people and everybody who is not registered to go ahead today and get registered to vote. We have people on hand who can actually register you, and don't worry about taking your forms down or doing whatever you need to do. We can help you and assist you with that. Voting matters. It really does. We have at least one politician here who can understand that voting matters. And for the people who we have who are a part of the system that are looking out for the issues for our communities, the juveniles in our communities, and representing that, we want to make sure that you have an opportunity to express your opinion, and the one way you do that is through your vote. Currently, I shared with our organization, there are bills currently that are winding their way through the system based on the legislative process that is going on right now regarding juveniles and juvenile justice. So you need to understand that your vote is your voice. So please see our VDRs. Could y'all stand up and raise your hand who are at the back table? Everybody who's able to register somebody to vote today, please go ahead, and if you are not registered, go ahead and get registered to vote.
Can I add to that? And just so you can know, if you're over the age of 18, you can register to vote. If you're 17 and your birthday is going to happen before the next election, you can register to vote. And if you are a convicted felon, but you're 5 years past that conviction ending, so you're 5 years out of TDC, you're 5 years off deferred, you can register to vote as well. So it's not just a criminal history thing or an over 18 thing. Probably more people can register to vote than they actually do, and I'd highly recommend that you at least try to register to vote and register if you meet those qualifications and do vote.
Last thing I want to ask, and I know we have some teens in here, you don't want to get your friends in trouble. You don't want to be the one who, as they say, snitched people out, drop a dime on people. What advice would you give to your teens about, I would say, snitching, especially when they say snitches get stitches? So what would you say to that?
Well, I think we kind of spoke on it earlier. Like, if your so-called friend is known for getting in trouble, then that's not your friend. Because if you know certain things that they're doing that could either get themselves in trouble or you in trouble, then distance yourself from that. That way you're not caught up in the whole snitches get stitches thing. I know there's some teens out there right now that know some things that somebody has done. Distance yourself. I gave the same instruction to my son, and I'm pretty sure he knows some stuff that somebody has done. But what you have to understand, that you put your family and your parents in a dangerous situation when you don't distance yourself, and then you get pulled into it, and now we have to step in front of you, whether spend money or to protect you from somebody trying to do bodily harm to you. You control that. Once you see that a person is a type of way, you don't have to be around that person. You don't have to, so you can be cordial, but tell them something like, hey, I'm on my way to church. I got to study. Those type things. That's my advice, to just kind of avoid that whole scenario.
So in reality, there are two types of snitches in this world. There are the first and foremost we see a lot, which is the co-defendant snitch. And the idea that snitches get stitches is not true with a co-defendant snitch. The snitch gets the deal. And I've done this for 15 years. Anytime I have co-defendants, one of them always snitches. It's going to happen at some point in time. There's literally no loyalty across the entire board when everybody's in jail. I can tell you that right now. So if you find yourself in a situation where you and your friend are both arrested for a crime, especially a violent crime, an ag robbery, or God forbid a murder or something like that, which I have clients charged with that, one of them is going to start talking. And I tell my client this: if you want to get a deal, if you want to do this, be the first one. If you don't want to do it, then that's your business. I have no problem with you keeping your mouth shut. But if you want to be that one to do it, be the first one, because I have never ever in my entire career not seen one co-defendant snitch. I have never not seen it. There's always one person, even when it's just two people. There's always one person that's going to give it up. So that's the first kind of snitch. And I would say, if you're a co-defendant, and if you want to go ahead and do it, and be the first one. The next kind is the kind of the one where we're talked about here, where it's just your friend, you're not a co-defendant, you just know something's going on, and whether you should snitch or not. Well, in my personal opinion, if you know that violence is about to occur, you should say something, right? So if you know your friend is the hothead with the gun that's bringing it to school and has beef with somebody else, you should say something. At the very least, and this even for adults, you don't want to have that on your conscience, knowing that someone was hurt, God forbid, killed, because you were abiding by a code that really doesn't exist. Now, being honest, if it's just a friend with drugs, then I probably wouldn't snitch on that, but also wouldn't hang out with that person, especially as a juvenile. You can lose your government money for college. You can lose you can have a lot of things barriers placed to you if you're caught with it. So me personally, if I had a friend with drugs, which I did, I just kind of stopped hanging out with them and just kind of moved on to a different world, so that nothing could slow me down from getting where I was at, which was in A-Leaf, Texas. I grew up in Foreign Park. My wife's from Club Creek. We grew up in A-Leaf. Used to live in Spice Lane, so I grew up in that side, and I was around drugs all the time. And just to kind of get from that to where I want to be, I just had to, just kind of pick better friends or pick different friends, or sometimes just be alone.
And I want to encourage you. This is just kind of the mother in me to the kids and to the parents. I tell my kids, and they're grown now, but I've told them, everybody's not happy or pleased with your successes in life. If you've accomplished something or something that you're proud of, everybody that's smiling in your face and saying they're your friend, they're not your friend. And so you have to keep that in mind. I believe that you don't need a whole school full of friends. You need one or two true friends who really have your best interests at heart, and y'all can look out for each other. And if you are really that close of a friend, then you should be able to go up and say, hey girl, you don't need to be doing that. Stop. I'm telling your mama or whatever, and it shouldn't be an issue if y'all are really that close. Same with the guys. If this is really your boy, then you should be able to say, hey man, that's not cool, and I'm not doing that, and you don't need to do that. And it shouldn't be a problem. And if you can't have a true conversation with this person you're calling friend, they're really not your friend. Be very, very selective of who you call a friend, who you hang out with, and distance yourself from others. And unfortunately, I'm going to say this, sometimes it's a family member. As a prosecutor, I can't tell you how many times I handled cases, and the problem was the interaction with a cousin or an aunt or an uncle that was just not a good example for that particular person, be it juvenile or adult, that I was dealing with. So sometimes you have to distance yourself from family, and it may be tough, but you have to do it. Same with parents. If it's sometimes you have to tell people they can't come to your house or they can't be around your friend. And I've done that. I've had people, I say, I love you, but you can't come here because I know, what you're doing, and I don't want that around my kids. So it's tough, but you're going to have to learn to stand up for yourself and protect yourself, your family.
So I don't want to use the word hate. I'm just going to say I dislike the term snitch. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having a level of integrity and purpose in your life, when it comes to what's right. My old unit I used to be a part of was called a CPOP. We would go out into the community. Our job was tasked with going into the worst areas of Harris County with the highest crime rate, who had no attention whatsoever, resource deserts. And one of the things that me and Raven found out in coming to these neighborhoods, one, there was already beef or no communication between the community and the police themselves. So we had to come in and start having those conversations and start talking, because again, our goal was to try and get this community turned around, right, without putting everybody in jail. One of the hardest things that we found was, once we recognized the problems, we had nobody to say yes to them, because it was a loved one, it was a cousin, it was a friend, but this dude meantime selling dope to everybody in that community, your mama, your cousin, your friend, you know what I mean? Again, find a way, whether it's between you and God, but find a way start speaking out and speaking up. We don't do that in our community enough, and we reap the benefits of being quiet, which is more of the same. And higher crime rate, murder rate, so on and so forth. So at some point, somebody does have to start being some patriots. Somebody does have to start standing up or find a smart way to do it. Find you somebody you trust that you can get that information to, so we can start figuring out ways to handle those issues in those communities that need it the most.
All right, well, this is the portion in our program where we're going to take questions from the audience. So if you could pass your index cards that you have to one of the members of Omicron Tau Omega, they're in black, and they will assist you with bringing your cards. Again, I'm going to give you another disclaimer. We can't speak to your specific issue, but we can give you general information. And if you feel like you have a specific issue that needs to be addressed, please consult an attorney about those particular issues. So, all right. Oh, this. Okay, I'll take one from the audience. Go ahead.
I can kind of speak on it from being in a patrol car situation. Is that your daughter? Okay. Hi, hello. Hey, how you doing? Hello. Hypothetically, let's say that you're driving, and I'm sorry, she's driving, or both of y'all driving. Well, you're driving, but she's passenger. But you get pulled over because your car was given in a call slip as a description of a serious crime. You may or may not fit the description. Policy says that a female should be searched by a female officer. If we find that you are the suspect or she's a suspect and there are no female officers available, a high-risk search can be performed on her just to ensure that she doesn't have any weapons like visible, like back of the hand search, not over sensitive areas, obviously. And then once she can be taken to the station where a female officer is working the desk to be searched, or once she get to JPC, we can let them know, hey, she wasn't detailed searched because no female was available. Has there been times where a male officer searched a female? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I can't speak on whether it was right or wrong because I don't know the situation, but we have had people fired for violating policy.
Yeah, so chiming in, we were Harris County, so a lot of our area was rural. We're out deep Baytown, we're out there. So some of your closest help was going to be 20 minutes away on high-risk situations. But we would make every effort possible to try and get a female officer. We would call other agencies over the radio. We would, again, call around, see if there's one at the station. So before we have to implement that search, now we're always going to do a safety search. That's going to happen. I got a whole family at the house. We're going to quickly do a safety search all day long, a quick pat down. But as far as the detailed searches and stuff like that, that's kind of frowned upon with our agency as well.
Okay.
All right, so in Texas, we don't have the 3 strikes like you think in California, but we do have a version of that. If you have one felony conviction, all right, let me rewind. Our penal code is defined in 2 categories of punishment: misdemeanors, felonies. A misdemeanor is any crime where the max sentence you can get is 1 year Harris County jail. And if you get the max possible sentence of a misdemeanor offense, the most you can spend is 1 year in jail. Those are misdemeanors, class A, B, and C. Then you have felonies, where the max you can get is death. A capital murder death results in you eventually dying in prison or dying from lethal injection or whatever. Those are a state jail felony, which is the lowest, 6 months to 2 years in a state jail, day for day. There's third degree, 2 years to 10 years. Second degree, 2 years to 20 years. First degree, 5 to life. If you have a felony conviction and you're charged with third degree, you can now be enhanced, and now your punishment range is a second degree. And if you're charged with second degree, it's now a first degree. And if you're charged with a first degree, your minimum is 15, your max is life. If you have 2 felony convictions, your 2 to 10 can become 25 to life. Your 2 to 20 can become 25 to life. Your first degree is now 25 to life. So we have a version of 3 strikes, you're out, but it's an incremental approach to your felony convictions. But if you have 2 previous felony convictions, what would normally be a 2 to 10 can be a 25 to life.
Can you give them a quick example of how a simple felony a felony or 2 can go to a category to be eligible for the death penalty, like capital murder? Like if you rob somebody and they end up dying.
All right, so in order to be charged with capital murder, you have to first be charged with murder. You obviously can't get capital murder for a very serious child sex offense or a very serious aggravated robbery offense or aggravated assault offense. Someone has to die. Now in Texas, there are only 5 ways you can get charged with capital murder. The easiest and most common is if you're committing one of several felonies: aggravated robbery, aggravated kidnapping, any form of sexual assault, burglary with habitation, and there's one more I keep forgetting. If you're committing any one of those felonies and somebody dies, if you and I are robbing a convenience store and I'm in the car as a getaway driver and you're in there robbing a convenience store and you accidentally discharge your gun and somebody who wasn't even who you're aiming for accidentally dies, we are all capable of being charged with capital murder. We are all capable of getting the death penalty in that situation, even me, the driver. Even if I did not know you had a gun, we can all be charged with it. And in fact, most capital murders in Texas are aggravated robberies gone wrong. That's the #1 capital murder charge in Texas. Then the next category would be if you kill a cop, capital murder. If you kill more than 2 people at the same time, so a home invasion gone wrong, an ag robbery gone wrong, any type of offense where 2 people die at the same time, capital murder. If you kill a child under 5 years old, could be capital murder. And if you kill a witness, could be capital murder. So those are the only 5 ways that you can be charged with capital murder. It sounds like there's not a lot, but I'm telling you, aggravated robbery is like, you'd be so surprised how many people are on death row for an ag rob gone wrong.
So someone from the audience asked that there was a discussion about drugs and guns. What about illegal drinking or drinking and driving? Say you are a teen and you are drinking and driving in the car, or you're at a party and there are other teens there and everybody's drinking. What happens in those scenarios?
As far as the juvenile justice system, anybody who is drinking and driving under the age of 21, it's a misdemeanor. It's handled. It's not the same as a DWI. A lot of people will tell you, "Oh, I had a DUI." A DUI is for minors. It's for juveniles. DWIs are for adults. Any juvenile in possession of alcohol can get a ticket, and you go down to municipal
one thing I will say, I remember growing up as a child, going out drinking with my friends and getting high, and then having to figure out a way to get home without my parents knowing. My dad was in the military, so everything was yes sir, no sir. So I was just told, you can't do this, period. I adopt a different approach in my life. I tell my kids, you can't do it, but if you do it, give me a call. My kids will not get in trouble for getting drunk or high at a party and then calling me to come pick them up. I would much rather them do that than do what I did, which is like figure out a way to get home, which end up usually riding with somebody or driving myself, and then having to navigate that. And thank God I made it home safely every time. So I think as parents, we can take my dad's approach, which is you don't do this, period. Point blank, end of story. And then maybe modify with my approach, but if you do it, let me know, because I'd rather you be home safe than run the risk of driving drunk or driving high or having something like that happen to you.
I would say, as the cool auntie, I adopted the second approach. My sister's in here, don't tell her. It appears, someone else asked, it appears that these conversations will need to take place early on to equip our youth in navigating through these encounters with the police. What advice do you have for parents in preparing our children early on?
I would say the best conversation is the hard conversation. Like there's no avoiding it. You know, they say to avoid something avoid an outward issue is to start an internal one inside of you. But again, look at it, you coming from the heart. You know, we really want to speak, look at it like it's the gospel, you know what I'm saying? Like, we are really trying to save our babies' lives. So take it from that standpoint. Let's sit down around dinner. Don't make it all weird, you know what I'm saying? Go to Starbucks or something, get some chicken nuggets, I don't know, everybody, wings or whatever. But have the conversations, have them often, have them gradually, have them casually. Man, my wife is real good at talking to the kids about it. They run from me. I'm cool. I don't know what's wrong with my kids, but you know, hey, I'm the cool one. But they assume, you know, I'm big in stature. I'm just going to immediately get on them. But again, you know, life is a journey, and as their tour guide, I'm trying to help them navigate through it as best as possible and as safe as possible. But don't avoid the conversations.
I would agree with that, and I think he said just have the conversation often. It needs to be a routine because things just come up. The other thing is sometimes it happens. It doesn't like me. Yeah. So as a parent too, we need to be open. We can't be scared of the conversation, and we have to be aware when our children are reaching out to us. I can tell you sometimes our conversations with Mike happen in the most weird times. We could be going in the car, going shopping with my daughter, and all of a sudden she would ask a question that I thought, that's weird. And then you just need to expound on it. Go, let's talk about this some more. Well, maybe this, maybe that. And then you'll eventually get to the real crux of the matter. But I say that to say you have to stay open-minded, and look for the opportunity, because sometimes it presents itself, but we're so busy with life. We all have a lot going on, and we miss that opportunity, and you don't want your child to shut down. The other thing I'm going to say is be mindful, parents, of your reaction, because I know when I was a child, if I try to say something and my parents reacted in a negative, aggressive, angry manner, I would shut down. And even though I needed to talk to them about something, I simply would not do it because I was scared. And so try not to do no. I tell them, no matter what it is, no matter how bad you think it is, no matter, come to me, go to the parent, and you have to be able to sit there with a calm face, calm tone, listen and talk to what they're saying. So be careful about your reactions, because you'll be surprised how much they watch what you do and how you respond, and that determines how well comfortable they are with bringing things to you.
Well, being honest, I don't think anyone up here has been exempt from family issues. I know I haven't. I remember the day I found out my son smoked weed. He was, no, I didn't cry. But I was extremely disappointed But he thought I was gonna kill him. He and another friend, both of them athletes, going to college on basketball scholarships, going to a park. They home for the summer, and a constable rolled up on them. They sitting in the car. Boom, boom. Long story short, the constable was nice enough to make both of them FaceTime a parent. He knew better than FaceTime me. I was at work. My wife was at home. And they didn't tell me until I got home. And if you know your child, parents, every single one of them has a nervous mechanism. My son's is this. So I come in the house, and I'll paraphrase this. And he said, Dad, I need to talk to you about something. And I was like, did you hit somebody in your car? He was like, no. I said, somebody hit you? He's like, no. I said, good. I don't have to spend money. I got out my uniform, sat down, and he said, I made an error in judgment. And I said, what was it? He said, da-da-da-da, we got caught with weed. And the only thing I could say was, why? And I just kept saying, why? And he couldn't answer that. He was expecting me to wild out. Because growing up, I wild out for no reason. Because you got to scare them, right? But the way the laws are set up, the way I was raised, you can't wild out like that. Sometimes you got to be flexible and just hit them with, why? And then correct them like, everything you've worked for is at risk. Your athletic scholarship. The money that I would leave you if I pass away, now I leave to somebody else. I think that got it more than anything. But my advice is to mix it up, because old school way, we got hit upside the head and we shut down. But these kids have these cell phones. The stuff you won't tell them, that cell phone will tell them.
Last one, I think one important one is, what if you have an encounter with the police and an officer gets aggressive with you? How do you respond in that situation? And what would you tell a teen, an adult? What would you do in that situation? How would you respond?
That's a tough one. And I say this, we could say what if all day. But when my son started driving, and I hate to keep saying my son, but obviously he's the only child I got. Or that my wife think, you know. Nah, I'm joking. I feared that, the encounter. Once again, we're not exempt, because even when we get pulled over, they don't know who we are, like if we're dressed like this, right? You have to get through that moment. Everything is being recorded. Know that. Picture or imagine that you're being robbed or threatened by someone with a gun. You're going to give them everything that they're asked for to preserve your life. Treat that situation the same way. But then take it to mom or dad and tell them exactly what happened, because if nothing else, they can ask to see that body camera footage. And I work for the Houston Police Department. The guy that's the chief of police now, he ain't playing no games. The one that was before him didn't play no games. The officers that know other officers are touching people and roughing them up, they don't play those games, because one unfortunate situation in a city or a town can put all of us at risk. Okay? That's my advice.
I got a son question too. Mine actually just happened 2 months ago. Luckily, I work nights, but my baby boy called me. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, Dad, you know, I got getting stopped, man. I'm like, where you at, son? I'm like, Harrisburg. I'm like, Harrisburg, 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, hey. I'm like, all right, man. You know, he's like, yeah, I'm pulling over here. The officer comes in. I know he has me on speakerphone. I didn't think he was gonna have me on speakerphone, but he started asking, why you didn't immediately stop? Why you didn't pull over here? You know, why you? And I'm glad that my son stayed professional. He stayed cool, and he, you know, where's your ID? He was like, hey sir, you know, well, my ID's here. You know, where's your insurance? He was like, you know, it's on my phone. You know, you need a paper copy. And I'm like, if you ran your license plate, you should be able to pull up via TCIC, NCIC, blah, 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 blah. So he heard me. He's like, oh, who's that? Oh, it's my dad. Now, everybody ain't got a dad who was sergeant. But everything he did leading up to me start speaking that cop jargon, he was doing right. So that moment is not the opportunity to be right. That's the opportunity to go home. And then when you tell your mama, you head down to that IED, you head down to that commissioner's office, you head over to, you see what I'm saying? You head to those proper avenues, because as an officer, I stay professional, so I expect the same from my peers as well. So that opportunity is not the time, and then when you go put that complaint in the file, oh, it stay there. It stay there. So when they come up for revision and try and get this position, and like I said, run for office or something like that, you got to attest to that moment in time. So don't try and win that moment. Be professional. Keep your cool. And the minute you get the opportunity, take your parents on down there, or you yourself on down there, and handle your business the proper way.
Hey, and just to add to the IAD thing, this is very important. Whenever you go, Internal Affairs Division, sorry, they give you a packet to fill out. That packet alone can be discouraging. How many of y'all hate filling out medical papers when you go to the doctor? Oh my God, I hate that. Just imagine this internal affairs packet, right? That's discouraging enough. This is where education and patience come in. You have to be able to recite when, where, why, exactly what happened. Because I've seen most people walk out of our station with that paper. Hey, I'm going to bring it back, Sarge. And they never come back. So what does that do? That prolongs that person that wronged you to not do it again. Okay? So please, have patience with it and file it. It's just like if you're eating at Papados and your waiter or waitress disrespect you. You're not just gonna storm out. We either gonna ask for a supervisor or we gonna want that meal for free. Thank you.
I was just going to add really quickly. I have the benefit now being not only on the criminal justice side of the law, but I'm a civil attorney. And so kind of piggybacking on what the officers were saying, after the encounter, again, that's not the time to make your point, to be right, to pull out your cell phone and try to record, because the minute you do this, then they're on alert. But what you do need to do is, before you leave that encounter, write down every single thing that happened. Get their badge number. Make sure you get the right agency. Write down where you are. What the nearest intersection that you're at. All of these details may not seem like they're important in the moment, but if you want to have the biggest impact, and number one, make sure that officer doesn't do that type of aggression with anybody else, and number two, hold that agency accountable, you have to be able to testify to what happened. And to testify doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be in front of the judge. You're going to have to testify on paper first. And if you can't articulate what happened, where it happened, who it was, when this or that, then you cannot go to internal affairs and make that report. On the other side of that, you can't go to someone like me, a civil attorney, and try to file a formal complaint, because in this day and age, and y'all can tell me if I'm wrong, civil actions are almost just as scary as criminal actions against an agency. The last thing HPD wants is you to file a lawsuit against them. That is the absolute last thing they need, especially if it's credible, and especially if you have every single detail about what happened. So now that I'm not only prosecuting anymore, but I'm a civil litigation attorney, all I do every day is depositions and paperwork and gather evidence. And if you cannot say with specificity everything that happened to you and who did it and what they were wearing, that case just kind of goes along the wayside.
So the only thing I would add to this is body cameras, when they record, they do record, but they're not saved unless that particular incident is cataloged a certain way. So don't rely on the officer's body cam. I would absolutely say, and because I didn't have the benefit of having fathers and moms who were law enforcement, turn your cell phone on before it starts. When they walk up, start recording, and then pass lock your phone. So activate it, start recording, put it in a cup holder, turn it, disable it, pass lock it, and then go through. I have a very different approach when it comes to that. My wife hates my approach, and that is this: I'm going to be respectful, but I'm also not going to disrespect myself. I'm not going to turn the lights on and put my hands in the air and start hemming and hawing and being all demure. I am 6'2" and 320 pounds. I cannot be a small man. I'm not going to be a small man. So I would say, even while you're being respectful, you don't have to be soft, and you don't have to be meek and that kind of stuff. I mean, you can still be you. You can still be firm, but be respectful. You can still be strong, but be respectful. You don't have to antagonize, but you also, my opinion, you don't have to be less than what you are, right? So that's kind of the approach I take.
Spin it back to the body camera.
And
I know our agency. Yeah. Speaking for HPD, our body cam videos are saved. They can pull them up from years back. Matter of fact, our contract was just renewed between the city and the union that really expanded the amount of time that one can go backwards to pull up videos. So I don't know if that's another agency or whatever, but I just wanted to clarify that. And I would suggest parents practice with your children. Ask them questions routinely. How would you handle this situation? Give them scenarios, not only with encounters with law enforcement, but if someone hits them, a fender bender, if someone hits them and drives off, the things to look for.
Well, thank you all for your questions, and thank you to these panelists. Can you all give these panelists another hand? I am so happy we were able to get all of these professionals here and be able to provide this type of information to our community. I will say this, just as we ended with the issues with law enforcement and what to deal with an aggressive cop, understand that everybody wants to go home at the end of the day. These law enforcement officers have family members, they have friends, they are fathers, they are aunts, they are uncles, they are people just like you. So always remember that everybody at the end of the day just wants to go home and wants to go home safely. So with that, I would like to bring up our Vice President again, Nikki Bailey, for any closing remarks that she might have. And then we will have our closing prayer and our thank yous for this event.
I want to get close to this speaker. Okay, I want to say thank you again to our panelists. Let's give them another round of applause. This was a timely and much needed discussion, so I hope that you got all of your questions answered, and then if you have an additional, I'm going to put you all on the spot. If someone has an additional questions that's not pertaining to their personal situation for legal advice, would you be able to stay around for a little bit to answer those? Okay, so if you have another question that just popped up, they'll be around for a little bit to answer that question for you. I hope you all learned something today. I know that I did. And one of the big things that I took away is just really having open dialogue with your kids, your family members, whomever. So take the information that you've learned today and just don't hoard it to yourself, but share this with your friends and your family, because this is very timely and needed. Create that safe space for your kids to be able to talk to you on a regular basis and not thinking of it, oh my God, this is so hard. Just really get that out of your head and just say, no, you want to equip your children with the information that they need so they can come be safe and come home safe, and vice versa for you. Like, even as a parent, getting stopped by police officers, what you need to do, or knowing what your rights are if you or if your child or somebody gets had a police encounter, or even at school, because I know that this day and age, everything is at our disposal. So yes, go through your children's stuff, as they said. They may feel like it's an invasion of privacy. They may get mad at you, but they'll get over it. But tell them why. So I want to thank our Advocate for Social Justice Committee Chairman, Leo Ellis again, and Janice Dawes for this amazing timely conversation. And I would just like to say for Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, for 115 years, we've been on the front line when it comes to social justice, change, and continuing to have these conversations. So I'm not sure how you all heard about this program today, but continue. If you don't follow us currently on social media, whether that's Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, please follow us for different events like that we're putting on for the city. And I'm going to give a plug for another timely symposium that we'll be doing in May. We will be hosting a mental health symposium. We'll have a component for adults as well as a component for children. That we were talking about depression, anxiety, trauma, all of those things, and we will have separate workshops just for teenagers only, and then workshops for adults only. So just be on the lookout for that. It's coming in May for Mental Health Awareness Month. So again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you to you all for coming out, and thank you to the Greenhouse International Church for allowing us to use the space to host.
Good evening. Good afternoon once again, everyone. Thank you to everyone once again. Quick things from the house, Greenhouse International Church. In the back, we have cases of hand sanitizer. So we want you to take a whole case, okay? So there is a gift from the church for you. So we invite you to do that. Also, there's different pamphlets and things that are going on within our community at Greenhouse. Those there are also on the table as well. So let's go to God in prayer. Father God, we just thank you for yet another opportunity to gather. Your word tells us where two or more are gathered, you dwell in the midst. So we thank you for your presence at this event. We thank you for the information that has gone forth. We thank you for the panelists, and we thank you for blessing us on this day. It is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you all.
And last but not least, before the panelists leave the stage, we would be remiss if we did not give you a gift of our appreciation for you being a part of this event here today. We are so thankful to you all for all the information that you were able to give, not only our members of Omicron Tau Omega, but also the members of our community, the teens, the parents, and everyone who's been a part of this event. I also want to thank you to the audience for you showing up. I want to thank y'all for having the wherewithal to educate yourselves and educate your teens about what's going on. And last but not least, if you haven't registered to vote, if you want to be a part and hear and make your voice heard in this community, please, we have people who are out here who are registering people to vote. And so we thank you to each and every one of you. And yes, look out for our next events on our social media page. You can find us on Facebook at Omicron Tau Omega, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Instagram as well. And thank you, and y'all are free to leave. Well, before you leave, we also have snacks. So please grab you some water, grab you some fruit, grab you something else, and also your case of hand sanitizer. I didn't know we were giving out hand sanitizer. Church was giving out hand sanitizer, but I'm so happy because you can provide that to somebody else even if you don't use it. Also, we have a small token of our appreciation to the pastor of this church. Pastor Deckard, if you could come up, please. I want to thank Greenhouse International Church again for being a force in this community, but also allowing us to host this event here. The church, if you did not know, was live streaming this event and making this possible for people who were also on social media to see this event. So thank you so much, Pastor Deckard. And oh yes, Pastor Deckard would like to say one more thing.
While I was sitting there, I was kind of observing the audience, and I was watching online. I would like to rerun this again in the summertime, and I would guarantee you at least 100 young adults will be in the audience to speak directly to them. So if the powers to be, decision makers, come back together again here sometime this summer and rerun this with an audience full of young adults, high school and college kids, so you can speak directly to them. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but
You know what? The members of Alpha Kappa Alpha always rise to the occasion.
so think about that.
So we are going to, I'm going to say, my co-chair person is out there. We will do everything that we can to make that possible. Because we want to be, again, a force for this community, and we want to make sure that we have this information. And I know my panelists, these are people now that have become not only, yes, they have become friends because I have been on them. So, so yes, we will do everything that we possibly can to make this a possibility. So thank you so much, Pastor Deckard, and thank you so much to Greenhouse International Church. And also, I want to give one last shout out to the members of Omicron Tau Omega Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Thank you all for your efforts to make this event a possibility. And again, thank you to our panelists.
For the members of Omicron Tau Omega, you know we love our pictures. So if you can come over to these chairs over here, we're going to take a group picture. I got quiet. We're going to sit over here and take a group picture, and we want to also get a picture with our panelists. So if we can get the panelists to come maybe on the front row here in the burgundy chairs, and chapter members will chapter members will start on the second row in the burgundy chairs here. Thank you.
And for our audience, please get your snacks, register to vote, and pick up your hand sanitizer. And thank you.